But they didn't ask. People rarely do. Instead, they adjusted their story internally, minimizing, downplaying. Oh, they just got lucky. Anyone could do that. And I let them believe that, because I was still building. Not every day was productive. Some days I doubted everything. Some days I felt like an imposter. Some days I wondered if all this effort would ever matter. But I showed up anyway. Not for applause, not for revenge, for myself. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to escape the failure label. I was outgrowing it. And then, without warning, the moment came. Not the big reveal. Not the truth coming out. Just a shift. A subtle one. People started asking questions. Small ones. Curious ones. The kind they ask when their assumptions begin to crack, and I could feel it. The story they told about me, it was starting to wobble. They just didn't know it yet. When their story started to break. The funny thing about labels is that people forget they invented them. They start treating them like facts. For a long time, failure wasn't just something they called me. It was the role I was supposed to play. The background character. The warning sign. The quiet example. So when I stopped acting like that version of myself, it confused them. Not enough to admit they were wrong, but enough to make them uncomfortable. It started small. A conversation where someone paused after I spoke. A meeting where my idea wasn't immediately dismissed. A moment where someone asked me for help, then quickly looked surprised by their own question. They didn't say anything. But I could feel the shift. People are very sensitive to changes in hierarchy, even unspoken ones. And suddenly, I wasn't where they thought I belonged anymore. I remember one specific moment clearly. Someone who used to talk over me asked, "What do you think?" Not in a polite way, not out of obligation. They were genuinely asking. For a split second, my old instinct kicked in. Stay quiet. Don't draw attention. Don't risk being wrong. But I didn't. Answered calmly, clearly, confidently, and the room listened. That moment didn't change my life. But it changed how I saw myself, because I realized something important. I hadn't changed overnight. They just hadn't noticed until now. Of course, not everyone reacted the same way. Some people adjusted, some stayed silent, and some resisted. There's a strange discomfort people feel when someone they underestimated starts to rise. It forces them to confront their own judgment. And most people would rather rewrite history than admit they were wrong. I started hearing things like, "I always knew you had it in you. I never really doubted you. I told people you'd figure it out." And every time I heard that, something tightened in my chest, because I remembered the whispers, the looks, the silence. But I didn't correct them, not yet. What most people don't understand is that growth threatens the stories others tell about themselves. If I wasn't actually a failure, then what did that say about how they treated me? So instead of apologizing, they adjusted the narrative. They pretended they had always believed. And honestly, that hurt more than the doubt ever did. Because doubt is honest. Revision is not. The more visible I became, the more they rewrote the past. People who never checked in suddenly claimed they supported me. People who ignored me took credit for helping me. I watched it happen in real time. And the strangest part? They believed it. Memory is flexible when pride is involved. But there were also moments of real recognition. Quiet ones. A nod of respect. A genuine thank you. An opportunity that didn't come with conditions. And I learned to tell the difference. Not everyone was pretending. Some people were simply slow to see. And I gave them grace. The real test came when the truth could no longer be ignored. When my work spoke louder than rumors. When results replaced assumptions. That's when things changed. For real, suddenly. My name was mentioned differently, not as a warning, but as an example. People asked how I did it. What changed? When it happened? And I always gave the same answer. I never stopped. But inside, I knew the truth. I didn't just keep going. I grew in silence while they were busy whispering. And now, the truth was getting closer to the surface. End of part 3. Quando quiser. Fecho a historia com. There's a moment in every story where silence can't protect the truth anymore. For me, that moment came unexpectedly. Not with drama, not with shouting, not with revenge. It came with exposure. For years, people believed I failed because I wasn't good enough, that I lacked discipline, talent, drive, intelligence. They never asked what was happening behind the scenes. They never asked what I was carrying, and I never told them until the truth surfaced on its own. The opportunity that changed everything wasn't handed to me. It wasn't a gift. It was earned quietly, repeatedly, relentlessly. And when the results became visible, they weren't small, they were undeniable. A project that succeeded beyond expectations. Recognition that couldn't be minimized. Proof that couldn't be brushed off as luck. And suddenly, people were paying attention. The same people who once lowered their voices when I walked by were now raising them when they said my name. But that wasn't the real shift. The real shift happened when someone asked the question they should have asked years ago. How did you turn it around? I paused, because the answer wasn't simple. I didn't turn it around, I survived it. What they didn't know was that during the years they labeled me a failure, I was fighting battles they never saw, financial pressure that kept me awake at night, family responsibilities that drained my energy, moments where I had to choose between stability and chasing growth. While they saw hesitation, I was calculating risk. While they saw inconsistency, I was juggling survival. While they saw failure, I was learning resilience the hard way. But none of that was visible from the outside, and society rarely investigates what it can easily judge. The truth didn't come out in a speech. It came out in fragments, in conversations where I stopped hiding the struggle, in moments where I admitted what was really happening during those failure years, and something surprising happened. Some people went quiet, not the dismissive silence I used to know, a reflective silence, because they realized their version of my story had been incomplete. One person even apologized. It wasn't dramatic, just a simple, "I didn't know." And that sentence meant more than all the fake support combined, because it was honest. But not everyone reacted that way. Some doubled down. They insisted they always saw potential, that they were hard on me for my own good, that the pressure made me stronger, and I let them talk. Because I finally understood something powerful. Closure doesn't require agreement. It requires clarity. And I had that now. The biggest realization didn't come from their reactions. It came from looking back. I realized that the years I thought were wasted were actually my foundation. The rejection built endurance. The whispers built focus. The isolation built discipline. If they had believed in me early on, I might have relaxed. If they had supported me loudly, I might have depended on their approval. Instead, I built something independent, something internal, and that changed everything. The day I stopped feeling angry was the day I truly won. Because anger keeps you tied to the past, and I didn't want to be defined by what they called me. I wanted to be defined by what I built. Now, when I walk into rooms, it feels different. Not because I demand attention, but because I don't shrink anymore. There's a calmness that comes from surviving judgment, a steadiness that comes from proving yourself to yourself. People don't whisper. Now, they ask questions, they listen longer, they watch differently, and sometimes I catch that familiar expression on someone's face, the same one I used to see directed at me. Someone else being underestimated, someone else being quietly dismissed. And when that happens, I make a choice. I speak. I acknowledge them. I give them the one thing I never received during those years: visibility. Here's what I learned. Being labeled a failure is not the end of your story. It's often the beginning of your independence. Because once people expect nothing from you, you're free. Free to grow without pressure. Free to experiment without applause. Free to build without interruption. And when the truth finally comes out, it doesn't scream. It stands calmly. It doesn't beg for validation. It doesn't need revenge. It simply exists, undeniable. If you're watching this and you feel like the person everyone whispers about, if you feel like you're the disappointment in the room, if you feel invisible, underestimated, written off, listen carefully. The quiet years are not empty years. They are building years. And one day when your results surface, people will try to rewrite history. They'll say they always believed. They'll say they saw it coming. And you don't need to argue. You'll know the truth, and that's enough. I was the failure everyone whispered about, until the truth finally came out. And the truth wasn't that I suddenly became talented. It was that I never stopped becoming. I was the failure everyone whispered about. Then the truth finally came out, the label they gave me. I didn't hear the whispers at first. Or maybe I did, but I pretended I didn't. You know that feeling when a room goes quiet the second you walk in? When conversations suddenly stop, eyes shift, and people avoid looking straight at you? That was my life for a long time. No one ever said it directly to my face. They never had to. I could see it in the way they looked at me. In the half smiles that disappeared too fast, in the polite nods that carried no respect behind them. I was that person. The one people talked about when they thought I wasn't listening. The failure. I remember the exact moment I realized how they saw me. It was a small moment, almost invisible. But those are the ones that change everything. I was standing a few steps away from a group of people I knew well. Friends, colleagues, people who smiled at me every day. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. I was just there, close enough to hear my name slip into the conversation. They didn't notice me. One of them laughed softly and said, "I mean, you know how they are." Another voice replied, quieter this time, "Yeah, it's kind of sad." And then the word that burned itself into my memory. Failure. They didn't say it loudly. They didn't need to. That word was already attached to me in their minds. I stood there frozen, my heart pounding like I'd been caught doing something wrong, even though all I did was exist. I walked away without saying anything. That was the beginning of the longest silent battle of my life. From that day on, I started noticing everything. The way opportunities skipped over me and landed on someone else. The way my ideas were acknowledged, but never taken seriously. The way people spoke to me slower, softer, like they were lowering their expectations in real time. I became the example people didn't want to be. Not out loud. Never out loud. But in the way parents compared their kids. In the way coworkers used my name when describing what not to do. The way success stories never included someone like me. And the worst part, I started believing them. I wish I could tell you I immediately fought back, that I stood tall, confident, unshaken. But that wouldn't be the truth. The truth is, I felt ashamed. Ashamed of how far behind I was. Ashamed of how little I had to show. Ashamed that no matter how hard I tried, nothing seemed to work. Every failure stacked on top of the last one, until it felt like proof. Proof that they were right. Watched others move forward while I stayed stuck. New jobs, promotions, relationships, recognition, and me? I became invisible unless someone needed an example of what not to become. There's a special kind of loneliness that comes with being labeled a failure. People don't hate you. They pity you. And pity is worse. Because pity sounds kind on the surface, but underneath it is the belief that you'll never change. They stop expecting anything from you. They stop investing in you. They stop seeing you as someone with potential. You become a finished story in their minds. Remember sitting alone one night, staring at the ceiling, replaying every decision I'd ever made, every wrong turn, every missed chance, every moment where fear made the choice for me. I asked myself a question that scared me more than anything else. What if this is all I ever am? What if the whispers were right? I tried to fix things the obvious way. I worked harder, stayed later, said yes more often, smiled through disappointment. But no matter what I did, the label didn't change. Failure sticks differently than success. Once people see you that way, they look for evidence everywhere. If you succeed, it's luck. If you fail, it's confirmation. And slowly, something inside me broke. Not in a dramatic way. Not all at once. It broke quietly. I stopped talking about my goals, stopped sharing ideas, stopped believing my voice mattered. I became smaller to avoid judgment, quieter to avoid embarrassment, and they took that as more proof. One afternoon, I overheard another conversation. This time, I wasn't surprised. Someone said, "I don't think they're ever going to figure it out." Another replied, "Some people just don't have it." I walked away again. But this time, something was different. I wasn't hurt. I was tired. Tired of defending myself in my own head. Tired of explaining my life to people who never listened. Tired of chasing approval from those who had already decided who I was. That was the moment I stopped trying to convince them. Not because I didn't care anymore, but because I finally understood something important. They weren't watching closely enough to see the truth anyway. I didn't announce any changes. Didn't post motivational quotes. Didn't tell anyone I was working on myself. I just disappeared from their expectations. I stopped performing for them. Stopped proving. Stopped explaining. And in that silence, something new began to grow. Not confidence, not success. Clarity. For the first time, I asked myself what I wanted, not what would change their minds. I realized I had been living my life on trial, constantly defending myself against a verdict that had already been passed. So I made a quiet decision. If they were going to call me a failure anyway, I might as well fail on my own terms. That decision didn't change my life overnight. There was no montage, no applause, no sudden turnaround. Just me. Alone. Doing the work no one saw. While they whispered, I learned. While they doubted, I built. While they forgot about me, I stayed focused. And the funny thing is, they never noticed. Not at first, which was exactly what I needed. The quiet work. Nobody applauded, no one claps for the version of you that is still invisible. That's something I learned the hard way. When I stopped trying to prove myself to them, I also lost the small reactions I used to get. The polite encouragement, the forced compliments, even the pity disappeared. And honestly, that silence was terrifying. Because when no one is watching, you're left alone with the truth. No excuses. No audience, no one to blame, just you. And the work. I didn't wake up suddenly motivated. I didn't feel inspired. Most days, I felt uncertain. Some days, I felt completely lost. But I kept going. Not because I believed in myself, but because I had nothing left to lose. I started rebuilding my life in ways that didn't look impressive from the outside. There were no announcements, no visible wins, no signs that anything was changing. I read when others slept. I practiced when others relaxed. I learned skills no one thought I needed, and still, nothing changed publicly. People still spoke about me the same way. I would hear it in passing comments. "Oh, they're still trying? That's good for them." Good for them. That phrase carries more judgment than people realize. It's what you say when you don't believe someone will succeed but want to sound supportive. And every time I heard it, I reminded myself of something important. They don't need to believe yet. I just need to keep going. There's a moment in every quiet rebuild where doubt gets louder than hope. For me, it came late one night. I was sitting alone, exhausted, staring at work that no one would ever see. No likes, no praise, no feedback. And I thought, what if I'm just wasting time? What if they were right all along? What if this effort leads nowhere? What if I'm just delaying the inevitable? That night, I almost quit. Not dramatically, not emotionally. Just a calm decision to stop trying. But something stopped me. A memory. I remembered how it felt standing outside that group, hearing them whisper my name. I remembered the shame, the smallness, the way my chest tightened. And I realized something. Quitting wouldn't make the pain stop. It would just confirm their version of me. So I kept going. Not because I believed I would win, but because I refused to disappear quietly. Progress didn't come as a breakthrough. It came as small, boring improvements. I got slightly better at things no one noticed. I understood concepts that used to confuse me. I made fewer mistakes. But from the outside, I still looked like the same failure. And that's the hardest part about growth no one talks about. You change long before the world updates its opinion of you. I would walk into rooms and feel the same energy, the same assumptions, the same lowered expectations. And for a while, it hurt. But then something unexpected happened. I stopped caring, not in a bitter way, in a focused way. Their opinions became background noise. Months passed, then more months. Still no recognition, still no validation. But internally, something was different. I trusted myself more. Not in a loud, confident way, in a quiet, steady way. I stopped second-guessing every decision, stopped apologizing for taking space, stopped shrinking when I spoke. And even then, they didn't notice. Because people don't look for change in those they've already labeled. Once you're a failure in someone's mind, they stop checking for growth, which turned out to be my greatest advantage. While they underestimated me, I had room to learn without pressure. No one expected greatness from me, so I could take risks without being judged, fail without being laughed at. Ironically, being invisible gave me freedom. Freedom to experiment. Freedom to fail quietly. Freedom to grow without interruption. And slowly, the work started adding up. Not enough to impress anyone yet, but enough to know I wasn't the same person anymore. I remember the first time someone looked at me differently. It wasn't praise. It wasn't recognition. It was confusion. They heard me speak about something with certainty. They saw me handle a situation calmly. They noticed I didn't ask for permission anymore. Their face said, "When did this happen?"